Welcome to the Come Follow Me lesson for the Book of Mormon for the weeks of January 1st through the 14th. And this relates to the introductory material about the Book of Mormon, how it came about, and what is the makeup of the Book of Mormon, as well as some of the selected passages from 1st Nephi chapters 1 through 5. This slide shows how the events that led up to Joseph Smith getting the plates occurred on a specific date, and that date is September 22nd, and it's a significant date in the history of the House of Israel. Note how many times on September 22nd Joseph Smith had to meet with the angel Moroni, and once he lost the ability to translate the plates and the Urim and Thummim was taken from him, it was on September the 22nd that Israel returned to him. So why is this date so important? The Feast of Trumpets, the Jewish celebration of Rosh Hashanah, or the Feast of the Trumpets, also called the Day of Remembrance, begins on Friday evening as the sun sets on the first day of the 7th month of Tishri on the Judaic calendar. And this is what it says in Leviticus. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, In the 7th month, and the first day of the month, shall ye have a Sabbath, a memorial of blowing of trumpets, and holy convocation. It was on the evening of September 22nd, 1827, that Saturday, the Sabbath, that the very month and day Israel celebrated the Feast of Trumpets on the first Tishri of 5588, that Moroni gave the plates to Joseph Smith. Since this feast was traditionally used as a symbol for the gathering of Israel, it is unlikely this timing was accidental, as Joseph was asked to meet with Moroni for 4 years in a row on the anniversary date of his first visit in preparation for that important and significant symbolic day in 1827. Many of these Judaic writers teach that the major theme of the Feast of Trumpets is remembrance. God's remembrance of his covenants with Israel, and the need for Israel to remember their God. The prayers of the day plead for this remembrance. They ask God to remember his covenants with the ancient patriarchs, that he would regather his people. And that's from Lynette Hadley Reed, The Golden Plates and the Feast of the Trumpets, that was published in the Ensign magazine back in January of 2000. The Book of Mormon's purpose, as stated by Moroni, is to show unto the remnant of the house of Israel what great things the Lord hath done for their fathers, and that they may know the covenants of the Lord, that they are not cast off forever. That's from the title page. The Book of Mormon, then, is both a sign and a witness that the final harvest to gather in the house of Israel from among the nations of the world has begun, to which we should all rejoice. The original Book of Mormon, that's the Ridge Plates of Mormon, was written and deposited near Joseph Smith's home. Now, Oliver Cowdery wrote a series of letters. This is from letter 4, and these letters were published and republished in Joseph Smith's journal. So this is what Oliver Cowdery stated about the original Book of Mormon. Moroni then proceeded and gave a general account of the promises made to the fathers, and also gave a history of the aborigines of this country, that means the United States, in 1835, and said they were literal descendants of Abraham. He represented them as once being an enlightened and an intelligent people, possessing a correct knowledge of the gospel and the plan of restoration and redemption. He said this history was written and deposited not far from that place, that's near Joseph Smith's home, and that it was our brother's privilege, if obedient to the commandments of the Lord, to obtain and translate the same by the means of the Urim and Thummim, which were deposited for that purpose with the record. Yet, said he, that's Moroni, the scripture must be fulfilled before it is translated, which says that the words of a book which were sealed were presented to the learned. He's referencing Isaiah chapter 29, verses 11 and 12. For thus has the Lord determined to leave men without excuse, and to show to the meek that his arm, is not shortened, that it cannot save. The part of the book was sealed, and was not to be opened yet. The sealed part, said Moroni, contains the same revelation which was given to John upon the Isle of Patmos. And when the people of the Lord are prepared and found worthy, then it will be unfolded unto them. Presented here is the timeline of events to print the Book of Mormon. On June 11th, 1829, a copyright was obtained. Then on July 1st, 1829, the translation was completed. On July 10th, Oliver Cowdery began the printer's manuscript from the original. That means Joseph Smith did not want the original manuscript to get out of their hand in the event that it might be lost. So he asked that Oliver make a copy of the original manuscript, and that's known as the printer's manuscript that was taken to the printer. Then on August 17, 1829, a contract was made with the Grandin Print Shop in Palmyra, New York, to print 5,000 books at a cost of about $3,000. Then on August 24, 1829, the first 24 pages were delivered to the printer by Hiram Smith, and the typesetting was begun by John Gilbert. And there's a picture of him there. And he lived from 1802 to 1895. Then on March 26, 1830, the first copies of the Book of Mormon were completed and ready for sale for 14 shillings. That relates back then to about $1.25 a book. Then on April 6, 1830, the Church of Christ was organized in the Peter Whitmer Sr.'s home in Fayette, New York, and the church was based on the Book of Mormon. And that's one of the significance of the Book of Mormon, is the creation of the church. When the typesetting was done, they had these large sheets of paper that was used to print what they called a signature. And a signature had 8 pages on the front, and then they'd create another set of typesetting on the back, which included also 8 pages. And then they would fold it, and there was a total of 74 signatures for the 592 pages that comprised the original Book of Mormon that was printed in 1830. And here I have an example of what that would have looked like. The interesting thing, too, is that the dimension of that original 1830 Book of Mormon is what they call the divine ratio of 1.618, and that divine ratio is found throughout all of nature. And so Joseph Smith asked that that dimension be used, and he also asked that a particular type font be used to create these, make the dimension what it is. So it really is a miracle how this book was able to be printed. Throughout this presentation, I'll be using examples of pages from the annotated edition of the Book of Mormon that I created back in 2018. And you can get those books at Deseret Book. You can get it at Digital Legends Press, Rod Meldrum's Firm Foundation, or Beacon Light Books, and my website. So this is the title page of the Book of Mormon, an account written by the hand of Mormon upon the plates taken from the plates of Nephi. Notice that it's an abridgment of the record of the people of Nephi. It's also an abridgment taken from the Book of Ether. So this is known as the original Book of Mormon title page, indicating that the Book of Mormon was created by Mormon, who was an editor, and he edited a long history, 1,000 years, taken from plates called the plates of Nephi. And there's 2 sets of plates. One is the larger set that had the history and the kings and wars and contentions and so forth, and the smaller plates that were a separate set of plates, and they are first person accounts. And then of course an abridgment taken from the Book of Ether. The title page of the Book of Mormon was written by Moroni, the son of Mormon. The prophet Joseph Smith explains the following. I wish also to mention here that the title page of the Book of Mormon is a literal translation taken from the very last leaf on the left-hand side of the collection or book of plates, which contain the record which has been translated, and not by any means the language of the whole running the same as all Hebrew writing in general, and that said title page is not by any means a modern composition, either of mine or any other man's who has lived or does live in this generation. Therefore, in order to correct an error which generally exists concerning it, I give below that part of the title page of the English version of the Book of Mormon, which is a genuine and literal translation of the title page of the original Book of Mormon, as recorded on the plates. So what does it mean to have this thing called the original Book of Mormon? So there are really two sets of plates. So I have here a chart that has 3 columns. The first column is the repository in the Hill Cumorah containing the plates of brass, the plates of Lehi, the large plates of Nephi, the plates of Ether, and also a separate set of plates called the small plates of Nephi. Also in the second column, I have the records that were in Moroni's stone box that in the Hill Cumorah that included the plates of Mormon. That's the abridged record of the people of Nephi, and these are the books, like the book of Lehi, the book of Mosiah, and so forth. Also, it contained the abridged record of Ether, the record of Moroni. It had the sealed portion of Ether, and that's known as the original Book of Mormon. And that's because we don't have the book of Lehi, so the original Book of Mormon we don't have. Then the records that were in the Hill Cumorah, we have the small plates of Nephi that were used to replace the lost book of Lehi, so that when the current Book of Mormon that we read, we get it in the order that you see there. It's the founding of the Nephite Society coming from the small plates, and then finally the plates of Mormon are used later. So the first set of plates, the first one is the harmony plates. We call that because that's translated in harmony. Those are the plates that were in the stone box that were retrieved from the Hill Cumorah. That's the abridged plates of Mormon that had included the book of Lehi that became lost with 116 pages. That's known as the original Book of Mormon. So all of that is that original book. So the Fayette plates was the small set of plates, the small plates of Nephi that were translated in Fayette, New York. They got translated last. This is a page from my annotated Book of Mormon where I show the founding of the Nephite civilization from the small plates of Nephi. When you start reading, I, Nephi, having been born of goodly parents. This is a page that is opposite to that gives you an idea of the timeline. So it starts out in 600 BC, and then finally in 589, Nephi is commanded to make a plates of ore for the plates of Nephi. You'll read that in 1 Nephi chapter 19. And then you'll continue all the way down to the year 559. Now Nephi is commanded to make the small plates of Nephi, another set. You'll read that in 2 Nephi chapter 5. And he'll say that it had been 40 years had passed away after being commanded to leave Jerusalem. So these are really two sets of plates. And so the first set of plates, the plates of Nephi were the plates used by Mormon for his abridged record. That's the original Book of Mormon, which included the Book of Lehi, which we don't have. And then the other set of plates are the small set, and they were not abridged by Mormon and were not in the stone box. Now, in Doctrine and Covenants, section 9, this was given in April of 1829. This is during the time that Oliver Cowdery was being the scribe for Joseph Smith in Harmony, Pennsylvania. And the Lord says the following to Oliver, "Behold, I send to you my son, Oliver Cowdery, that because you did not translate according to that which you desired of me, and did commence again to write for my servant Joseph Smith Jr., even so I would that you should continue until you have finished acting as scribe in writing this record, the abridged plates of Mormon, which I have entrusted unto him. And then, behold, other records, that means the small plates of Nephi, have I, that I will give unto you power that you may assist to translate. Once Joseph and Oliver completed the abridged plates of Mormon, the plates were taken by a messenger, preventing Joseph from retranslating the book of Lehi. And you'll read that all in Doctrine and Covenants, section 10. That messenger met Joseph, Oliver, and Oliver's friend David Whitmer while traveling in a wagon to David's home in Fayette, New York. Edward Stevenson had a journal, and in that journal he recalls this statement from David Whitmer. An aged man about 5'10", heavy-set, and on his back an old-fashioned army knapsack strapped over his shoulders, and something square in it, and he walked alongside of the wagon and wiped the sweat off his face, smiling very pleasantly. David asked him to ride, and he replied, "I am going across to the hill Cumorah." Soon after they passed, they felt strange and stopped, but could not see nothing of him. All around was clear. And they asked the Lord about it, and he said that the prophet looked as white as sheet, and said that it was one of the Nephites, and that he had the abridged plates of Mormon. That's in his journal that was written in 1877. Mary Whitmer, that's David Whitmer's mother, was shown the small plates of Nephi. Soon after, that is, David Whitmer, Oliver, and Joseph arrived home in Fayette, New York, I saw something which led me to believe that the plates were placed or concealed in my father's barn. That's Peter Whitmer Sr. I frankly asked Joseph if my supposition was right. He told me it was. Sometime after this, my mother, who is Mary Whitmer, was going to milk the cows when she was met out near the yard by the same old man. That was the man that they had seen on their way coming from Harmony up to Fayette, New York, judging by her description of him, meaning that she said he was a heavy-set man that was about 5'10" and had a beard, who said to her, "You have been very faithful and diligent in your labors, but you are tired because of the increase in your toil. It is proper, therefore, that you should receive a witness that your faith may be strengthened." Thereupon he, which is one of the Nephites called Nephi, showed her the plates. The same old man, Nephi, one of the three Nephites, took the abridged plates of Mormon back to the Hill Cumorah repository, and then found the small plates of Nephi there, and took them to the Whitmers in Fayette, New York. Now, these two sets of plates, the abridged plates of Mormon and the small plates of Nephi, have two separate sets of witnesses. And from that, we can glean the importance of why these two separate plates had two separate sets of witnesses. So the three witnesses received a spiritual witness for the abridged plates of Mormon. Be it known unto all nations, kindreds, tongues, and people, unto whom this work shall come, that we, through the grace of God the Father and our Lord Jesus Christ, have seen the plates which came to contain this record, which is a record of the people of Nephi, and also the Lamanites, his brethren, and also of the people of Jared, who came from the tower of which hath been spoken. And we also know that they have been translated by the gift and power of God, for his voice hath declared it unto us. That means God, the Father, and Jesus Christ came and declared it unto them. Wherefore we know of a surety that the work is true. We also testify that we have seen the engravings which are upon the plates, and they have been shown to us by the power of God, and not of man. And we declare with words of soberness that an angel of God came down from heaven. So that's an important difference. There, you got the voice of the Lord, and then we have seen the plates by the power of God and not of man. Now, David Whitmer's testimony amplifies what that means. He says, "Of course we were in the Spirit when we had the view, for no man can behold the face of an angel except in a spiritual view. But we were in the body also, and everything around us was as natural to us as it is at any time." Martin Harris, you say, called it being in vision. We read in the scriptures Cornelius saw in a vision an angel of God. Daniel saw an angel in a vision. Also, in other places, it states that they saw an angel in the spirit. A bright light enveloped us where we were, that filled the woods as at noonday. And there, in a vision or in the spirit, we saw and heard, just as it is stated in my testimony in the Book of Mormon. Now, the other set of plates, the small plates of Nephi, the 8 witnesses had a physical witness of those plates. Be it known unto all nations, kindreds, tongues, and people, unto whom this work shall come, that Joseph Smith, Jr., the translator of this work, has shown unto us the plates which have been spoken, which have the appearance of gold. And as many of the leaves of the said Smith has trained, we did handle with our hands. We also saw the engravings thereon, all of which has the appearance of ancient work, and of course of curious workmanship. And this we bear record with words of soberness, that the said Smith has shown unto us, for we have seen and hefted. Note, here we have Joseph Smith showing the 8 witnesses the plates, and they are actually handling and touching and moving the leaves of the plates and hefting them and giving an account how much they weighed and so forth. Eventually you'll learn in some other records that they said they weighed about 30 pounds. So we have 2 sets of witnesses, a spiritual witness and a physical witness. Just as we had spiritual bodies in the premortal life and we had to gain physical bodies, the spirit and the physical are needed. Similarly, when Christ was resurrected, he didn't just say, look at me. He said, I want you to come and have a tactile response. I want you to physically touch me. I want you to feel the prints in my hands and my feet. I want you to know that I am a resurrected being and I'm a physical being. So we need the both. We need the physical and the spiritual. And these 2 sets of plates and 2 sets of witnesses, in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, has established that fact. So the language of the Egyptians, that's demonic Egyptian that was begun about 650 BC. This is a form of Egyptian that Nephi would have been taught. So if we read in 1 Nephi chapter 1, verses 1 through 3, we see, I, Nephi, which is a coliform, meaning that he is writing this in the first person. That means that Mormon, the editor, is not editing any of the small plates. These are a separate set of plates. He's not the editor of this work. This is Nephi's own writing. I, having been born of goodly parents, meaning they were well-to-do, therefore I was taught somewhat in the learning of my father. In other words, they had the income to do that. He was taught because they had money, and that was providing him a good education. And having seen many afflictions in the course of my days, nevertheless, having been highly favored of the Lord in all of my days, yea, having had a great knowledge of the goodness and the mysteries of God, therefore I make a record of my proceedings in my days. Yea, I make a record of the language of my father. Now, that language was, of course, Hebrew, which consists of the learning of the Jews, and the language of the Egyptians. That's the demonic. That's what he would have been trained, and that's the learning that he would have gotten. And I know that the record which I make is true, and I make it with my own hand, and I make it according to my knowledge. Now, what would demonic Egyptian look like? Well, we have here what we call a character document that was copied by John Whitmer. Now, John Whitmer is on the scene there in Fayette, New York. Therefore, he is there when the small plates of Nephi are going to be translated. He also acts as a scribe to Joseph Smith during this time, and that's around early in 1829. They're living in the log home of Peter Whitmer Sr., that's in Fayette, New York. These characters have been identified as demonic Egyptian and are from the small plates of Nephi. This is a example of a work that was done by Ariel Crowley in an article that was published by the church back in February of 1942 in a periodical known as the Improvement Era. And what Brother Crowley does is show how the demonic Egyptian that he had identified in various forms, in articles, museums, publications, and so forth. He meticulously looked for different demonic symbols and then compared them to that character document that John Whitmer produced. And so on the right-hand side are those characters, demonic Egyptian characters coming from different museums and articles and periodicals. And on the left side are images that come from the character document that John Whitmer wrote. And you can see that there's a 100% agreement of those characters that are on the plates of Nephi to the demonic characters that have been found in these articles and periodicals. So this is definitive proof that the character document that John Whitmer was able to copy were from the small plates of Nephi, because they are demonic. Having established that there are two separate sets of plates and that the translation occurred at different times, I'd like to now show you how the translation process had very tight control. So here I show in 1 Nephi chapter 1 verses 6 through 8 the following. And it came to pass that as he, Lehi, prayed unto the Lord, there came a pillar of fire and dwelt upon a rock before him, and he saw and heard much. And because of the things which he saw and heard, he did quake and tremble exceedingly. And it came to pass that he returned to his own home at Jerusalem, and he cast himself upon his bed, being overcome with the Spirit and the things which he had seen. And being thus overcome with the Spirit, he was carried away in a vision, even that he saw the heavens open, and he thought he saw, that is, Lehi saw, God sitting upon his throne, surrounded with numberless concourses of angels, in the attitude of singing and praising their God. Now that First Nephi was translated second. That was the last translation. That was done in Fayette, New York, after the plates of Mormon were taken away from Joseph Smith in Harmony, Pennsylvania. Now, Alma was translated first in Harmony, Pennsylvania, soon after Oliver Cowdery acted as the scribe. And what do we read? Yea, methought I saw, even as our father Lehi saw, God sitting upon his throne, surrounded with numberless concourses of angels, in the attitude of singing and praising their God. Yea, and my soul did long to be there. So notice that these two phrases are identical. And think about this. You have Alma describing his situation to his son in Alma chapter 36, verse 32. That being translated in Harmony, Pennsylvania. The plates were taken then from them, and then another set of plates was given to Joseph in Fayette, New York. And now that was translated in much later. And look at the precision and the accuracy in quoting that Alma quoted from the record that was part of his understanding that he could draw from, that was translated that was written down and inscribed on the plates of Nephi, the small plates of Nephi. So that to me it shows you how much tight control there was in the translation process. The justification of Nephi's killing of Laban has been problematic for many people for many years. It's one of the most difficult things that converts described when they first read the Book of Mormon, or people who don't want to join the church. When they get to that section of the Book of Mormon, they'll say, I just can't see how God could provide a way to be counter a commandment not to kill. So let's explore this. Let's read what Nephi says. Nevertheless, I went forth, and as I came near unto the house of Laban, I beheld a man, and he had fallen to the earth before me, for he was drunken with wine. And when I came to him, I found that it was Laban, and beheld his sword, and I drew it forth from the sheath thereof, and the hilt thereof was of pure gold, and the workmanship thereof was exceeding fine. And I saw that the blade thereof was of the most precious steel. And it came to pass that I was constrained by the Spirit that I should kill Laban. But I said in my heart, never at any time have I shed the blood of man. And I shrunk, and would that I might not slay him. And the Spirit said unto me again, Behold, the Lord hath delivered him into thy hands. Now we're going to cross-reference Exodus chapter 21. Yea, and I also knew that he had sought to take away mine own life, yea, and he would not hearken unto the commandment of the Lord. And he also had taken away our property. And it came to pass that the Spirit said unto me again, Slay him, for the Lord hath delivered him into thy hands. Behold, the Lord slayeth the wicked to bring forth his righteous purposes. It is better that one man should perish than that the nation should dwindle and perish in unbelief. So let's take a look at this reference to Exodus chapter 21, verses 12 through 14. And he that smiteth a man so that he die shall surely be put to death. And if a man lie not in wait, but God deliver him into his hand, then I will appoint thee a place wherewith he shall flee. But if a man come presumptuously upon his neighbor to slay him with guile, thou shalt take him from mine altar, that he may die. So what do we get here? The justification for Nephi to slay Laban. It's part of the law of Moses. Finally, I have this image here that comes from the Joseph Smith Foundation. This is Hannah Stoddard and her father, the late James Stoddard, created this Book of Mormon Prophetic Parallels timeline. And throughout the course of this year, through Come Follow Me, reading the Book of Mormon, there will be many references to this chart. So when we start out with First Nephi, we know that Lehi and other prophets are being persecuted. And if we compare that to the Reformation of the church during the time that the church was being reformed, they were also being persecuted, just like the prophets were persecuted in Jerusalem. So as we go through this year, this chart will be helpful to us as we show that the Book of Mormon is very prophetic to us. It really becomes the guide book for us to understand the events that have happened in the past and that will happen in the future. So the prophetic Book of Mormon is an essential part of our canon. It is the most important book that we have, because it is the foundational work of our church. The doctrines that are in it, it's the most correct book according to Joseph Smith, and it was translated by the gift and power of God, and I bear witness to that in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.